Have you ever felt like money was slipping through your fingers, no matter how hard you tried? Have you ever wondered why some people seem to attract prosperity so easily, while others struggle their whole lives and never get anywhere? What if I told you there's a way to change that, not by changing the world outside, but by changing the way you think inside? This is the story of Jackie Simmons, an ordinary woman who lives surrounded by debt, fear, and despair. She woke up every day burdened by bills and feeling like her life hung by a thread. But what Jackie didn't yet know was that the power to transform everything was already within her, just dormant, waiting for a sign. And it's about this sign that you'll hear today. A journey of overcoming, faith, and discovery, proving how the mind can be the gateway to true prosperity. But before diving into this story, tell me one thing. Do you believe that your thoughts can change your life? Whether you believe or even doubt, stay with me until the end, because what happened to Jackie can happen to you too. Oh, and if you're not yet subscribed to the channel, take advantage now. Subscribe, leave your like, and comment below where you're listening to this story from. Let's discover together how the law of attraction transformed Jackie Simmons' life, and can transform yours too. Jackie Simmons was the kind of person who always believed that hard work was enough to succeed. She woke up early, went to bed late, and yet money seemed to slip through her fingers. She lived in a small one-bedroom apartment, surrounded by bills piled on her desk and dreams tucked away in a forgotten drawer. Still, there was a stubborn flame within her, a spark that refused to go out. Perhaps it was hope, or perhaps something greater about to awaken. Jackie's days were long and repetitive. Between a cold coffee and a crowded bus, she wondered when her luck would change. She gazed at the city shop windows and imagined what it would be like to be able to buy something without looking at the price. Sometimes she smiled to disguise the weight in her chest, that kind of smile we use to hide sadness. Little did she know that life, silently, was already beginning to move the pieces of destiny in her favor. She was a woman with a big heart and a weary mind. She worked 2 jobs, and even then, the money never stretched to everything. Friends said she was a warrior, but deep down, Jackie felt she was fighting an invisible battle against time and against herself. With each overdue bill, a doubt arose. Did she really deserve to prosper? The universe was listening, even when she believed no one else was. In her few moments of free time, Jackie liked to look at the sky through the window. There, amidst clouds and thoughts, she wondered if there was a purpose in all. Something inside her whispered that life wasn't just about debt and frustration, but the voice of doubt was loud, insistent, and the fear of dreaming again seemed safer than trying. Little did she know that this fear would be precisely what life would use to teach her to start over. And it was on one of those ordinary days, amidst the noise of the city and the silence of the soul, that something began to change. Jackie didn't know it yet, but she was about to cross paths with knowledge that would transform everything she understood about money, luck, and destiny. Because sometimes it's in the midst of chaos that the universe whispers the first invitation for change. Jackie's debt seemed to grow like shadows that followed her wherever she went. Bills arrived before payday, collection calls in the middle of the night, and a tired look reflected in the mirror every morning. Each red number on the bank screen was like a cruel reminder that she was trapped in an endless cycle. Sometimes, she felt that money rejected her, as if an invisible barrier existed between her and abundance. Over time, fear began to take hold within her. Fear of opening her wallet, fear of answering the phone, fear of believing that anything could change. She lived with a heavy heart, trying to balance the little she had with the much she owed. Every penny was counted as if it were her last, and yet it never seemed enough. Jackie began to doubt herself, and the dream of a peaceful life seemed increasingly distant. At night, lying in bed, sleep didn't come easily. Her mind raced in circles, recalling mistakes, missed opportunities, and promises she hadn't kept. Why me? She thought, as if the universe had something against her. There were moments when she cried softly, so no one would hear, trying not to wake the neighbor or her own hope. It was a silent pain, the kind of pain that doesn't show on the face, but lives in the heart. Even so, she pressed on. She grabbed a quick coffee, put on her best smile, and faced another day. On the outside, she seemed strong, but inside, The exhaustion was immense. The burden of scarcity weighed heavily on her shoulders, and with each attempt to solve one problem, another appeared. It was like trying to mop the floor with the tap running, and the more she struggled, the further away the solution seemed to get. But there's a limit to everything, even suffering, and it was precisely when Jackie believed there was no way out that life decided to surprise her. Fate, in a curious way, began to prepare an encounter that would change her perspective on the world, and especially on herself. Over time, scarcity began to seep into everything, her words, her gestures, even the sparkle in Jackie's eyes. She no longer laughed like before, and the mirror seemed to reflect someone she barely recognized. The feeling of failure clung to her skin like dust after the rain. Every "I can't," she said to others, was a reminder of how often she also said "I can't" to herself. It was as if money had become the measure of her own worth. Her friends began to drift away, not out of malice, but because Jackie always refused invitations. She said she was tired, that she had too much work, but the truth was simple: shame. Shame in admitting that she couldn't afford a pizza, a movie, or even a coffee. And loneliness, that old acquaintance, gradually crept in without asking permission, without making a sound. At home, the silence was heavy. Jackie sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to understand when she had lost control of her own life. Her heart ached, not only from the lack of money, but from the lack of faith. It was as if each debt had taken a piece of her self-confidence. And the worst part was that she believed she didn't deserve anything more than that. At work, she did everything to disguise it. She smiled, greeted her colleagues, but inside, the fear of being discovered gnawed at her. At the end of each month, she felt smaller, as if the whole world were a stage and she, the only actress playing prosperity she was experiencing. It was an emotional exhaustion that went far beyond the bills. It was a feeling of being invisible to the universe. But life has a curious way of working. When the soul is weary, the universe often sends signals, small, subtle, almost imperceptible. And it was precisely in one of these moments of silence, when Jackie thought that nothing more could change, that something began to catch her attention. Something different, that she couldn't yet explain. Jackie grew up hearing that money was hard to come by, that only those who already had a lot could get more. These phrases, repeated for years, ended up becoming silent truths within her. Money doesn't grow on trees. Working too hard is the price of success. The poor are born to suffer. All of this echoed in her mind like a broken record. And, without realizing it, Jackie began to live according to these beliefs, as if they were laws of life. She believed that wealth was a privilege of the few, that destiny was already mapped out, and that hers was to survive, not to prosper. And so, every time an opportunity arose, something inside her said, "This isn't for me." It was almost automatic, an invisible but powerful block that prevented her from seeing her own potential. The fear of failure always spoke louder than the desire to try. Over time, Jackie began to sabotage herself without realizing it. When something good happened, she doubted it. When her salary increased, a new expense appeared. It was as if the universe obeyed the belief she nurtured. And in fact, it did. Because what we think, feel, and believe ends up becoming our reality. And Jackie, unknowingly, had been nurturing a reality of lack and fear. Some nights, she found herself thinking, "Is there something wrong with me?" But there was nothing wrong, just a mind trained to expect the worst. And the more she believed it, the more the world responded in kind. Frequency. The truth is, deep down, Jackie wanted to believe that change was possible. She just didn't know where to start. It was on one of those days of reflection, while walking distractedly down the street, that she overheard a conversation that seemed meant for her. Two people were talking about a book, about thoughts that attract realities, about something called the law of attraction. Jackie paused for a moment, and that simple coincidence would be the turning point she had been waiting for, even without understanding why. It was on a Monday morning that Jackie's world seemed to collapse completely. The phone rang early, and on the other end, a cold voice informed her that she had lost her job. The call lasted only a few seconds, but the silence that followed seemed to last an eternity. Jackie stood there motionless, staring into nothingness, trying to understand how life could change so much in such a short time. It was as if the ground had opened up beneath her feet. The bills kept arriving, but now the salary would no longer come. Despair began to tighten her chest, and for the first time, she felt the true taste of fear, the kind that paralyzes, that makes the heart pound. She started avoiding the mailman, the bank, even her friends. Every message seemed like a demand for payment. Every conversation a reminder of everything she had lost. The weight of uncertainty was almost unbearable. The nights grew long, and sleep a rare visitor. Jackie tossed and turned in bed, thinking about how to tell her mother, how to face the future, without knowing what to do. She cried silently, clutching her pillow as if it were a safe haven. And it was there, between tears and sighs, that she realized something inside her needed to change, because continuing as she was no longer an option. In the following days, the world seemed gray. She wandered the streets aimlessly, observing the hurried people, as if they lived in another universe. She fell out of sync, as if trapped in a film where everyone was moving forward, except her. With each shop window, a reminder of what she couldn't have. With each distant laugh, a question, will I ever get out of this? And then, in a moment of near despair, life decided to whisper. While waiting for the bus, listless, Jackie heard again that word that wouldn't leave her head, attraction. A poster stuck to a lamppost advertised a small, free event about energy, mind, and prosperity. She took a deep breath, looked at the sky, and thought, what if I go? What do I have to lose? Without imagining that this choice would change everything, Jackie arrived at the small auditorium without high expectations. The place was simple, almost makeshift, with plastic chairs and a faded sign that read, "You create the life you believe you deserve." She sat in the back, crossed her arms, and thought that perhaps it had been a mistake to go there. But when the speaker began to talk about energy, vibration, and thoughts that shape reality, something inside her awakened. It was as if someone was finally describing the life she wanted to understand. Those words seemed familiar, even though they were new. Everything you focus on grows. Everything you fear, too. The phrase echoed in Jackie's mind like a distant bell. She began to wonder, what if the problem wasn't the lack of money, but the way she thought about it? For the first time in a long time, a spark of curiosity replaced despair. The impossible seemed possible. After the lecture, Jackie stood on the sidewalk, watching the people go by. Her heart felt light, but her mind was racing. She wasn't sure she fully believed it. But something inside her had changed. A small glimmer of light had opened up. She bought a book recommended at the event and spent the entire night reading, underlining phrases, jotting down ideas, try to understand this new universe that promised so much. In the following days, she began to pay attention to her own words. She realized how many times she said, I can't, I'm not able to, it's difficult. It was almost automatic. So she decided to try something new. She replaced it's not possible with it hasn't worked yet. A small change, but one that seemed to carry a different, almost magical power. And the most curious thing, she began to feel better. And it was precisely at this point, when her heart was beginning to open and hope was taking its first steps, that fear decided to knock on the door again. Because believing is easy when everything is going well. But when the world seems to crumble, can faith hold firm? Jackie was about to find out. In the early days, Jackie felt like an explorer in new territory. With each positive phrase she repeated, a part of her whispered, that's nonsense. It was like fighting an ancient echo within her own mind. She wanted to believe, but the past pulled her back, reminding her of all the times she had tried and failed. And between the desire to change and the fear of disappointment, a strange, invisible battle was born. There were mornings when she woke up excited, ready to put everything she had learned into practice. She would turn on some soft music, write affirmations on the mirror, and feel invincible. But as soon as she opened her banking app, she felt the weight of reality fall on her shoulders. There's no point in dreaming, Jackie, she thought. Real life isn't that easy. And that's when her hope began to waver. Even so, there was something different this time. A subtle, almost imperceptible but constant feeling. It was as if a calm voice, deep inside, was telling her to keep going. Jackie didn't know if it was faith or stubbornness, but she decided to persist. If there's even the slightest chance this will work, I'll find out, she promised herself. And that small, sincere promise began to change everything. But believing it didn't happen overnight. Sometimes, she caught herself mocking her own attempts, laughing to herself while repeating phrases in front of the mirror. It seemed ridiculous, but at the same time, liberating. For the first time, she felt she could speak well of herself without guilt, without fear of seeming arrogant. It was strange and beautiful at the same time, as if she were discovering a new version of herself. It was in this mixture of doubt and curiosity that Jackie took the next step. She decided not only to think differently, but to feel differently. She began to test the power of the mind in everyday life, starting with something simple, something that could prove, once and for all, whether that so-called law of attraction was real, or just another beautiful illusion. Jackie decided to start slowly, without high expectations. She took an old notebook, wiped the cover clean with her hand, and wrote on the first page, "My new life begins here." Every day, before leaving home, she read that sentence aloud. At first, it seemed like just another desperate attempt, but little by little, the words began to gain weight, emotion, truth. It was as if she were teaching her heart to believe again. Mornings became her secret ritual. With the sun streaming through the window, Jackie would close her eyes and imagine herself debt-free, smiling, living lightly. She saw herself walking in a beautiful place, feeling the wind on her face and a sense of financial security she had never known. She couldn't explain it, but the more she visualized it, the more real it seemed. It was like watching a trailer of her own life, only a happy one. At first, her mind tried to sabotage her. "You're fooling yourself," she heard from within. But Jackie took a deep breath and persisted. She began to replace the fear with phrases that sounded different. "I deserve to prosper. I am capable. Money comes to me in unexpected ways." With each repetition, something inside her rearranged itself, as if a rusty gear started turning again after years of being stopped. Curiously, the world around her also seemed to respond. One day, a friend brought her coffee and, without knowing why, said, "You've been walking around with good energy, Jackie." She smiled. Perhaps it wasn't a coincidence. Perhaps it was a beginning. She realized that the more she believed, the lighter she felt. And this lightness was new, delightful, almost addictive. And it was during this phase of discovery that Jackie encountered something even more powerful: gratitude. Not the kind you say thank you out of politeness, but genuine gratitude, the kind that changes the way you see life. And this new practice was about to open doors she didn't even know existed. One night, while rereading her notes, Jackie found a phrase that made her stop. "Gratitude transforms what we have into enough." She stood there, looking at those simple words, and, for the first time, felt a different warmth in her chest. She began to think about the little things she still had: the roof over her head, the smell of coffee in the morning, the friend who always asked if she was okay. She realized that, deep down, she had never lacked everything, only the ability to see. The next day, she bought a new notebook and called it My Gratitude Book. Every night, before bed, she wrote down 3 reasons why she felt grateful. Sometimes it was something big, sometimes something so small it would go unnoticed. And somehow, this changed the atmosphere around her. What had once been despair began to take on shades of hope. Jackie began to sleep peacefully, like someone learning to trust life again. As the weeks passed, she noticed something curious. Things seemed to flow more smoothly. Small setbacks ceased to be monsters, and even the difficult days came with "it will pass." It was as if the universe was responding to her new energy, returning kindness, coincidences, and subtle opportunities. Jackie didn't understand how, but she felt it, and that was enough. With each page completed, her mind grew kinder. The inner voice that had once criticized her now began to encourage her. "Look how far you've come," she told herself. And for the first time, Jackie felt proud of her own story, not because everything was resolved, but because finally she had stopped fighting against life and started walking alongside it. And it was in this new rhythm, with a lighter soul and an awakened heart, that one day she noticed something different. Small coincidences began to repeat themselves. Unexpected calls, invitations, ideas. It seemed that the universe, previously silent, was beginning to respond back, as if to say, "Now you are ready to listen." The changes began almost imperceptibly. A smile from a stranger, an unexpected compliment, a chance encounter with someone who seemed to be in the right place at the right time. Jackie began to realize that the world around her was more receptive, lighter. It was as if, by changing inside, the universe had changed the lens through which she saw life. The colors seemed more vibrant and the air lighter. One morning, as she left her house, she found a $20 bill lying on the sidewalk. A simple coincidence, perhaps, but Jackie chose to believe it was a sign. Money comes to me in unexpected ways. She remembered the phrase she repeated so often, and she smiled. For the first time, she didn't doubt. She felt part of something bigger, as if the universe were winking at her, saying, "See, I hear you." Her energy had shifted, and the world seemed to react. People were kinder, conversations more pleasant. Even the traffic seemed less cruel. Jackie realized that life had always been willing to smile at her. She had just spent too much time with her head down. Now, every coincidence was received as a gift, a reminder that everything has its time, and that, perhaps, hers had finally arrived. With a calmer heart, she began to feel something new. Confidence. Not that forced confidence of someone trying to convince themselves, but true confidence, the kind that springs from the soul. Jackie stopped asking life to prove anything and began to simply allow it. And in this state of surrender, everything seemed to flow naturally, effortlessly, without fear. But the universe, in its wisdom, always tests those who are ready to grow. And it wasn't long before a new challenge appeared, bringing with it the question that every change carries. Do you really trust? Or was it only when everything was going well? Jackie decided to take the practice of visualization to another level. She took a piece of colored cardboard, clippings from old magazines, and began to assemble what they would call a dream board. On it, she pasted images that represented everything she desired. A bright house, trips, a new car, and above all, peace. As she arranged each figure, she felt as if she were rebuilding her own life, not with bricks, but with faith. Every morning before work, she would sit in front of that painting and imagine herself inside it. She felt the touch of the key in her hands, the sound of the car engine, the laughter coming from a house full of light. She would close her eyes and let her heart believe, even if the world hadn't yet shown any signs. And the more she visualized, the more real it seemed. Jackie wasn't just dreaming. She was rehearsing the life she wanted to live. At first, it seemed like an innocent game, but soon she noticed something different. Her mind began to respond with enthusiasm. Her body filled with energy, and sadness no longer found a place. It was as if each image pasted there had transformed into a seed, germinating in the fertile soil of hope. Jackie realized visualization wasn't fantasy. It was training for the soul to believe. Once, while looking at the painting, she found herself smiling for no reason. That smile that comes from within, born from the silent certainty that something good is on its way. It was as if the universe had understood the message and was, little by little, putting the pieces together. Everything still seemed the same on the surface, but inside, a revolution was happening. And just when she began to feel the power of this new vibration, the world decided to test her once more. Because every true transformation goes through a moment of trial, and Jackie was about to discover just how firm faith needs to be when the ground starts to shake. The days seemed to be going well, until the unexpected came knocking again. An urgent expense, a costly repair, and there Jackie was once more, facing numbers that didn't add up. For a moment, the old fear tried to invade her heart, that familiar whisper. See? It was just luck. She took a deep breath, felt a lump in her throat, and wondered if she was truly ready to keep the faith when everything seemed to be falling apart. That week, everything seemed to collapse at once. A client canceled a payment. The electricity bill came in higher, and a family health problem required extra expenses. Jackie looked at her vision board and felt a tightness in her chest. It was as if the universe was testing her, asking, "Do you still believe even now?" And for the first time, she understood true faith is continuing to believe when there is no sign at all. There were tears, of course. She cried silently, alone, afraid she was dreaming too big. But between sobs, she decided not to give up. "I'm not going back to where I came from," she whispered to herself. She closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and repeated her affirmations, even without strength. It was no longer about waiting for miracles, but about choosing to trust, even tired, even afraid. Gradually, the pain transformed into courage. Jackie began to understand that each obstacle was, in fact, an invitation to align herself even more with what she believed in. When her mind wanted to doubt, she remembered the small coincidences she had already experienced. "If the universe has already shown me the way, why should I doubt now?" she thought. And so, from faith to faith, despair gave way to serenity. And it was precisely when she began to accept the challenges as part of the journey that something different happened. A subtle, almost imperceptible, yet powerful turning point, an opportunity that seemed small, but carried the potential to change everything. And Jackie, with her heart still trembling, decided to say yes. Jackie realized that believing was only the beginning. True change came when she maintained her faith, even without seeing immediate results. She understood that the law of attraction wasn't about sitting around waiting, but about acting with confidence. Each step, each decision made with positive intention, was a seed sown in the soil of life. And she began to plant one dream at a time, one act of courage each day. At first, it seemed exhausting. There were days when enthusiasm faded and doubt crept back. But Jackie learned to be patient, to understand that the universe's time is different from clock time. Instead of complaining, she began to act with gratitude, even in small things. When washing the dishes, she gave thanks for having food to eat. When paying a bill, she said, "Thank you for having the money." It was simple but powerful. Over time, she noticed that persistence brought something beyond results. It brought peace. She no longer needed to prove anything to anyone, nor justify herself. Jackie began to trust the process, like one trusts the sunrise, without haste, without fear. She learned that faith is a daily choice, and that the more she aligned herself with the energy of what she wanted, the more the world responded with generosity. One morning, looking at herself in the mirror, she smiled differently. It wasn't the smile of someone who had conquered everything, but of someone who had learned to walk without getting lost along the way. Jackie discovered that thriving isn't about chasing what's missing, but about realizing how much already exists within oneself. And the more she vibrated at that frequency, the more doors opened, some discreetly, others wide open. And it was through one of those doors, open almost casually, that something extraordinary happened. A simple gesture, a brief conversation, an unexpected opportunity. The kind of synchronicity the universe sends when it senses you are ready to receive. Jackie began to understand that the secret lay not only in thinking differently, but in feeling differently. Every time fear appeared, she acknowledged it, took a deep breath, and let it go. "I choose to trust," she whispered. Gradually, she exchanged anxiety for serenity and began to act as someone who was already prosperous. She walked more lightly, smiled more often, and, without realizing it, the world began to react to this new energy. She began to dress more carefully, not out of vanity, but because she wanted to express this new version of herself. She started behaving like someone who was already living the life she desired, organized, confident, at peace. Her money hadn't changed much yet, but her vibe had. And it was curious to notice how this attracted different people, new conversations, and even subtle opportunities that seemed to spring up out of nowhere. The affirmations were no longer just phrases. They were living beliefs. I am worthy. Abundance surrounds me. The universe conspires in my favor. Jackie spoke these words with full heart, like someone speaking an ancient truth that she finally remembered. It was beautiful to see, A woman who once lived in fear of dreaming now walked with her head held high, guided by something greater than herself. With this new mindset, she began to act differently. When an opportunity arose, she no longer thought, what if it goes wrong? But what is what will change everything? This simple shift in perspective was the key, because the universe doesn't respond to words, but to the energy we carry behind them. And Jackie's energy now was that of someone who already saw herself as abundant, and it was in this state of serene confidence that the unexpected happened. A concrete, tangible opportunity, the kind of event that transforms belief into certainty. Jackie was about to receive the first tangible sign that her new reality was, at last, taking shape. It was an ordinary afternoon when the phone rang. Jackie almost didn't answer. She thought it was just another debt collector, another reminder from the past. But on the other end of the line was a different voice, an enthusiastic former colleague offering a partnership opportunity on a new project. Nothing grand at first glance, but something inside her said yes before reason could even begin to think. It was as if the universe had spoken through that call. In the following days, Jackie threw herself headlong into that small job. She gave it her all, putting love, energy, and faith into every detail. And, to her surprise, the return was quick. The project grew, profits came in, and her name began to circulate again in professional circles. The money that came in wasn't much, but it represented something much bigger. Confirmation that the law of attraction worked, and that she was on the right track. Every achievement, no matter how small, was celebrated with gratitude. Jackie no longer saw money merely as a number, but as a reflection of the energy she emanated. It was a beautiful cycle. The more she gave thanks, the more it flowed. And the more it flowed, the more she believed. Abundance, she realized, was not a distant prize. It was a state of being, and she had finally tuned into it. Over time, other opportunities began to appear. People she never imagined she would see again came looking for her, offering collaborations, ideas, and new paths. It was as if the universe was reorganizing itself around her new vibration. Jackie smiled to herself sometimes, remembering when everything was just a collage of pictures pasted on the wall. Now, part of that dream was beginning to materialize before her eyes, and it was in this rhythm of silent, almost magical growth that she felt the calling to go further. It was no longer enough to simply receive. She wanted to expand, multiply, create something lasting. And deep down, she knew that the next step would be the most transformative of all. After that first opportunity, doors began to open in an almost poetic way. What had previously seemed scarce now flowed naturally. Jackie began to meet new people, full of energy similar to hers. Dreamers, determined, optimistic. The conversations were different. Ideas came easily, and everything seemed to fit together smoothly. It was as if the universe had created an invisible network, connecting her to those who vibrated at the same rhythm. One morning, she received an unexpected invitation to join a group of local entrepreneurs. Jackie hesitated for a moment, but something inside her told her it was the next step. There, she found mentors, partners, and even friends who shared the same values. Each meeting felt like a lesson on how positive thinking could translate into action, and action into real prosperity. Opportunities began to multiply. One project led to another, and each new contact opened up a range of possibilities. Jackie learned to say yes with confidence and no with wisdom. She no longer accepted just anything out of fear of scarcity. Now she chose what truly resonated with her soul. It was beautiful to see. She had stopped merely surviving and started creating. Her energy was different. Where there had once been anxiety, now there was presence. Where there had once been haste, now there was purpose. Jackie realized that the more she remained true to the vibration of gratitude and abundance, the more the universe responded with generosity. It was like a harmonious dance between intention and action, dream and reality. It was during this new cycle of expansion that Jackie had a profound insight. The prosperity she so desperately sought wasn't just in external opportunities. It was within herself. And this discovery would be the turning point that transformed her journey to success into something even greater, a journey of self-discovery. Over time, Jackie realized that true transformation lay not only in what she achieved, but in who she became. She was no longer the frightened woman who feared the future. She was someone who understood her own power. She began to realize how much her thoughts shaped the path ahead. When she thought with fear, she attracted chaos. When she thought with faith, the universe aligned itself around her. This awareness changed everything. She began to observe herself with more love. She noticed when an old belief tried to return and calmly chose to replace it. "This no longer serves me," she would say in a low voice, almost like a mantra of liberation. The simple act of becoming aware of her thoughts brought a lightness she had never felt before. It was as if she had learned to converse with her own mind and finally be heard. Jackie understood that the mind is a garden and thoughts are the seeds. For a long time, she cultivated fear, doubt, and scarcity. Now, she planted faith, courage, and abundance, and the result blossomed before her eyes. People began to notice the difference. Her gaze, her voice, even her presence carried a new serenity. It was the energy of someone who had discovered that she creates her own reality. This empowerment brought something even deeper: freedom. Jackie no longer depended on circumstances to be happy. She learned to find peace even when things spiraled out of control. She discovered that true prosperity is not the absence of problems, but the ability to face them with confidence. She no longer sought having. Now she lived the fullness of being. And it was from this new awareness that something beautiful began to happen. Her inner transformation began to inspire others, friends, colleagues, even strangers who crossed her path. Jackie didn't know it yet, but she was about to become a beacon for those who also sought the path to abundance. Jackie's transformation was so noticeable that even those who didn't believe in energy could perceive it. People approached her with curiosity, as if sensing something different in the air. At work, colleagues sought her advice. In the neighborhood, it was common for someone to say, "You have a different glow, Jackie." She smiled grateful, knowing that this glow didn't come from luck. It came from within. It was the light of someone who had discovered their own power. Her new attitude seemed contagious. Friends who had previously complained about life began to change as well. Inspired by her stories, they created gratitude journals, made dream lists, and started to believe again. Jackie realized that what she had learned wasn't just for her. It was something that needed to be shared. What had once been a personal secret was now becoming a mission. One afternoon, she decided to create a small online group to talk about the power of the mind and visualization. It started with just a few people, but in a short time, dozens joined. The messages she received were moving. People saying they regained hope, paid off debts, and rediscovered their purpose. Jackie cried with emotion as she realized that her old pain had been transformed into a tool for healing. The most beautiful thing was seeing how her life continued to expand effortlessly. The more she shared, the more she learned. The more she gave, the more she received. The universe seemed to respond generously to every sincere gesture. Jackie understood now that prosperity is not about accumulating. It's about flowing. And the more she let it flow, the more abundance returned to her. And it was in this new state of fullness that a special turning point occurred. An unexpected invitation from afar reached her, something big, different, that seemed to close one cycle and open another. It was a sign that the universe had even bigger plans for those who chose to live in the vibration of gratitude. Time passed, and Jackie's life was completely transformed. The woman who once found herself drowning in debt now lived in balance and abundance. Her company grew, projects flourished, and opportunities seemed to arise naturally. But more than financial success, what truly moved her was a feeling of peace she carried. Jackie had discovered that prosperity is a reflection of inner harmony. She looked back and barely recognized the old version of herself. Every obstacle, every tear, every fear, everything had a purpose. What once seemed like punishment now revealed itself as learning. Jackie understood that life never punished her. It only waited for her to be ready to receive it. And at that moment, the faith that was once doubt was now certainty. Her mornings became rituals of gratitude. The warm coffee, the sun streaming through the window, and the gentle sounds of the city were reminders that she had won, not against the world, but against herself. Every thought now was a conscious act of creation. Jackie knew that she attracted what she emanated, and therefore, She chose to always vibrate in love, peace, and trust. The universe responded in the same harmony. But what surprised her most was seeing how naturally everything happened, effortlessly. Money flowed, connections came, ideas flourished. It was as if the universe was saying, "Now that you understand, you can rest." Jackie smiled and understood that the secret was never chasing after things, but rather allowing life to work in her favor. And so, amidst laughter, achievements, and gratitude, she realized she had arrived where she had always wanted to be, but in a completely different way than she had imagined. Because in the end, true prosperity wasn't about what she had, but about who she had become. And this discovery was just the beginning. Simmons' story wasn't just about money. It was about awakening, about remembering that every thought is a seed and every emotion a ray of sunshine that makes that seed bloom. She learned that the universe doesn't respond to the words we say, but to the energy we feel. And when fear gives way to confidence, life transforms into a fertile field of possibilities. Jackie discovered that thriving is an act of faith, not strength. It's understanding that abundance doesn't arrive when everything is perfect, but when you open yourself to receive it, even amidst chaos. The law of attraction isn't magic. It's coherence between mind, heart, and action. And when these three dance in the same rhythm, the impossible becomes inevitable. Today, her life is a living reminder that all change begins within. The mirror that once reflected doubt now shows gratitude. The house that once seemed cramped is now a home full of light and purpose. Jackie understands that nothing was by chance. Every fall, every new beginning, every dream was just a step on the same path, the path of awareness. And perhaps what is most moving about your journey is realizing that we all have this same power, that each person carries within themselves the ability to transform fear into faith, lack into abundance, doubt into certainty. The universe is always ready to answer. It just waits for the heart to ask the right question. Simmons' story, not as a final point, but as an invitation, a silent reminder that prosperity isn't out there. It's right here inside, right now, waiting for you to believe enough to see it. Jackie Simmons discovered something many spend their entire lives searching for. That prosperity is not a destination. It's a state of being. She understood that the mind is the factory of our days and that every thought, every emotion, is a silent request that the universe listens to attentively. When she changed from within, the world around her reorganized itself, as if saying, "Now you are ready to receive." And perhaps this is the message the universe wants to remind you of today. Everything you seek, money, peace, abundance, begins within you. It's not about fighting against life. It's about aligning yourself with it. Because when the heart vibrates at the right frequency, the impossible ceases to be a mystery and becomes just a matter of time. So, if Jackie's story touched you, remember, you too are the creator of your reality. With every thought, you plant the seeds of tomorrow. Choose to think with faith, feel with gratitude, and act with purpose. And observe how the universe will respond. If this story inspired you, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and share it with someone who needs to hear this today. Perhaps this is exactly the message that will ignite the spark of change in someone else's life. After all, shared prosperity is multiplied prosperity, and the world needs more light like yours.